Hey there, I'm back from a couple weeks on vacation, ready for another lockdown Bible thoughts. But I need to come up with a new name for this, maybe. It's morphed into other things as well. It's not just lockdowns from coronavirus anymore that is kind of spurring this on. But at any rate, we got back from vacation and it's been interesting because I may look like I'm a little more bronzed than normal. That's not because of being on vacation, getting a tan. It's really smoky outside because now we got this large fire to deal with just a little ways to our east, and it's all blowing smoke in this way. So, anyway, here we are, still dealing with life, wondering how to live in the midst of all the challenges we face. And I'm continuing to relate some devotionals from Philip DeCourcy's book, Emergency Rations, and we're in a section called Surviving the Struggle to Gain Perspective. It's good to have a good perspective when things are challenging, and the challenges just keep piling up in this year of 2020, which, like, the worst year ever, as most people would say. And the author in this one kind of talking about don't know it all, or that's kind of how I'm titling Don't Know It All. It's a good thing not to. Don't do it. Don't try to know it all. Anyway, he relates this little story about a mother who was waiting for her girl to get off the bus after her first day at school. When she got off the bus, the mother asked her, "What did you learn today?" And the little girl replied, "Nothing, I guess. The teacher said I have to come back tomorrow." Maybe under the mistaken impression that if you go to school one day, that's it. You're done. You learned everything you need and you can just stay home after that. But no, we don't know it all. Not in one day, not in one lifetime. And there are people who come off as know-it-alls, but they don't know it all. People might wish they knew it all, but they never can. Given the world we live in lately, I think it's becoming painfully obvious that we don't know it all. There's just so many things we don't know. Never going to be able to know about coronavirus stuff, about all the racism and rioting stuff, about the elections, about fires and winds. It's just, there's never an end of things we don't know, it seems. And there's a lot of times, of course, we wish we knew more. And it's not wrong to know more. Information can be very useful, obviously. Nothing wrong with that. Wanting to know more, learn more, figure things more things out. But the author relates it this way. When you start thinking about gaining perspective as a follower of Jesus, we can easily make the case that it's a good thing that we don't know it all. The author talks about 4 different ways that it can kind of help us to not know it all. See, there's another alert about fire evacuation stuff going on. Oh, be quiet. I'll check later. I may have to evacuate soon. So first of all, not knowing it all, number one, he says, can help us remain humble instead of getting puffed up and proud. 1 Corinthians chapter 8, verse 1 says, "We know that all of us possess knowledge, and this knowledge puffs up, but love builds up," kind of contrasting knowledge and love. Knowledge puffs up. That very often is the case. We've probably all met people who are kind of puffed up with their own sense of how much they think they know. Realizing we don't know it all really makes us easier to live with, among other things. Keeps us humble. That's a good thing. Number 2, knowing that we don't know it all can help us to take one day at a time, which is, generally speaking, a pretty good way to take life. Now, we also have to plan long term and think about things to come, and it's not like we ignore our future. We don't know the future, though, and we know some things about what's coming down the road from looking at life or from the Bible, but again, we don't really know, and we kind of need to take one day at a time sometimes. And again, that's kind of a good way to take things. In fact, Matthew 6:34, Jesus talks about this a bit. He says, he's talking about not being anxious in Matthew 6. And he ends with this statement, verse 34, Therefore do not be anxious about tomorrow, for tomorrow will be anxious for itself. Sufficient for the day is its own trouble. Or you think about things like when it talks about in the Bible that God's mercies are new every morning and things like that. Like each day has enough of its own stuff to deal with. And if we realize we don't know it all, we can just kind of focus on the day at hand. Yes, we plan for the future. We focus on day after day, realizing that each day is a new start in our spiritual life. His mercies are new every morning. We just continue on, and each day we start again. Start our days with God, end our day with God, start the next day, and just keep on going. So knowing we don't know it all has this other help, kind of help us take one day at a time. Third, Knowing we don't know it all can help us to be kinder to others. We don't know the whole story of any person we meet, not even those we know really well. We don't know the whole story. So maybe it helps us when we realize we don't know everything about them, maybe to be more careful to be kind and avoid things like wrongful judgmentalism, things like that. 1 Corinthians, we were in chapter 8. Let me turn back just a couple chapters to chapter 4 and verse 5. Therefore, do not pronounce judgment before the time, before the Lord comes, who will bring to light the things now hidden in darkness and will disclose the purposes of the heart. Just realizing that God is the one who knows all these things. We don't, and it's good that we don't know it all in that sense. Number 4, knowing we don't know it all can push us to know God better, realizing He is the one who does know it all and who is working all things according to His purposes. Romans 8:28 is, of course, a great verse for that, where we read, we know that for those who love God, all things work together for good, for those who are called according to His purpose. And we could go on and on about God's knowing all things, His omniscience. We've talked about that before in other contexts, though. When you realize you don't know it all, it's really good to have that relationship with the one who does know all things and is able to work all things according to His purposes, even for our individual lives, knowing that everything is going to work out ultimately to grow us to be the people He wants us to be. Little by little, we continue to be transformed as we engage with His Word and in prayer and with the people of God and the church and all these sorts of things. So yeah, we don't know it all. In a lot of ways, that's a good thing, though we might wish we knew more sometimes. But God does know all things, and He's in control of all things. He's sovereign, He's loving, He's good, He's gracious, He's merciful, on and on we go. And far better than knowing all things ourselves, it's best to know the one who knows all things, to be in personal relationship with God through Jesus Christ. That's what we want to know. You're never going to know everything about everything, but you can know the one who knows, and particularly to know Jesus Christ in the sense of knowing Him for salvation is number one. At any rate, until next time, stay in step with the Savior.